It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Wednesday, midweek edition of the show. It's great to be with you. Thanks so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. Also a big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. Today we got a really special treat. We're at the Ag Excellence Conference in Guelph, Ontario, and we're doing a live broadcast of the show. We got a great audience here, as you heard. The other part of this, too, is it's brought to you by Farm Management Canada, which we really, really appreciate. And speaking of Farm Management Canada, a great organization focusing on raising the bar for farm managers across the country. We'll be talking to Heather Watson. She's Executive Director with Farm Management Canada. She'll be with us here today. We're also going to take a little bit of a sneak peek at some of the RealAgristudies data as it pertains to learning and development. There's some findings there that I think the audience here in Guelph is going to find interesting, as well as some of you back home, wherever you are listening to the show. We're also going to do a University of Guelph student panel. So the University of Guelph is one of the most prominent agricultural schools here that we have in Canada. It rivals many of the schools that are out there in North America. There is also, I believe, an ag business program here at the school as well. We've got a student panel. These are three up-and-coming stars in our industry, not to put any pressure on them whatsoever. But we're going to dive into, I think there's two juniors and a senior, third and fourth year, to put it in Canadian terms. We're going to be talking to them about, why did they choose to go into agriculture? Because they are in agricultural programming. And as they enter the workforce very, very soon, what are some of the things that they're looking for when it comes to people that are going to be leading them as they develop into leaders in, I'm sure, the very, very near future. If you have any feedback, questions, comments, opinions, rants, especially if you want to disagree with me, that is great. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us across all the different social media platforms. At this point, there is way too many to even mention. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Before we start, I want to mention, I really believe this. The ultimate success of this sector that we love, we call it agriculture, we love the industry. Everybody that's in the audience here, or people listening to Rural Radio 147 know this. We love this industry, but the ultimate key to our success is our ability to manage our businesses. There's tons of variables. There's things that are being thrown at us that are so far out of our control, we have no idea which way to turn some mornings when we turn on the news or maybe turn on the radio. Hopefully it's Rural Radio 147. It's managing our farm businesses that is really key. And we have to take this topic seriously. I'm going to show you some data here in a little bit where I'm not really sure that we are in some of the segments. We're really good at livestock management. We're really good at growing crops. It's the other things that are involved that I think we're kind of missing out on. And here's the thing. A lot of times we focus on, hey, I'm from a 100-year farm, or my farm's been around for 200 years. That's great. We should celebrate that. But it doesn't mean that you're equipped or ready to take on 2024 as we click across the calendar here in about 90 days, or 45 days. Whew, the year is going very quickly. The thing is, we're never going to be perfect, right? This is about a daily grind of getting better and improving. We heard a great opening address here earlier today about that. No CEO is perfect. No VP is perfect. Nobody that has run a very, very successful small business is perfect. It's about the improvement and improving on these skills on a daily basis. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get to some of the real agri-study data that sort of pertains to this learning and development and what we're seeing when it comes to the Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index. And we'll do that when we come back. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you by Farm Management Canada.
Managing your inoculants just got easier with Lalfix Start Spherical Pulses from Lalaman Plant Care. Get increased nitrogen fixation and phosphorus availability for any pulses you grow. Its high porosity granule provides improved handling and accurate metering, so it's easy flowing and virtually dust free. It's the only inoculant you need. It's Pulse Perfect. Contact your Lalaman sales representative today.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground. We are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. Here in Guelph, Ontario, we're at the Ag Excellence Conference with Farm Management Canada. Big thanks to them for being the sponsor of today's program. So as I promised, we're going to get into some of the Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index data that we have been doing with our market research arm, RealAgristudies. And now for the radio audience, you can't see these slides that I'm showing everybody, but you can definitely go to RealAgristudies.com and find some of our latest contributions in this area, and I'll try to describe it the best that I can. So what we're doing here is we're measuring, in some ways, a mirror to the CME Purdue Ag Barometer, trying to track the sentiment of Canadian farmers on a number of different topics. And we don't have time here in this 12-minute segment to dive into all of this. Do encourage you, like I said, to go to RealAgristudies.com. The line that goes across the middle is neutral. That's 100. So if on any of these questions it ends up being 100, that means that Canadian farmers are neutral in their sentiment. What you can see is there's a lot of these bars that are actually below the neutral line. Overall, I would say when it comes to the ag economy, their outlook, even going 5 years, their current farm financial performance, their future farm financial performance, there's a lot of negativity in the air. There's also some interesting data, and we talked about this on RealAg Radio a couple months ago, back in more of the summer. Canadian farmers have a more negative outlook on their current and future farm financial performance than their U.S. counterparts. And we're not entirely sure why. And we'd really like to dive into that more. What's happening here, on the very left, we're asking people about their current farm financial performance. You can see the trend line is going down. In January, I felt we were in a pretty good spot. People are feeling very good about the year across the board. This is across the country. The main part of the sample is Ontario and the prairies. We're a little light in the Maritimes, Quebec, and BC, so this is where the majority of the data is coming from, is those 4 provinces. What's interesting is we've seen current farm financial performance slide. We've seen the second group of bars, the future farm financial performance, kind of go sideways and start to work its way up a little bit. So we've had this gap between current farm financial performance and the future. People always feeling more negatively about the future than the current situation. And that is that they're actually converging on each other now, which is really, I think, kind of interesting. The other thing I'll point out before I show you some of the learning and development stuff is, I don't have a pointer on this thing, it would be second from the right. You know that bar that's kind of bouncing all over the place like a trampoline teeter-totter? That is farmers' outlook on the market. Do you think now is a good time to buy, or do you think now is a good time to sell? And you can see that we have gone all over the place. Okay, this speaks, I think, to some of the challenges that farmers are going through, trying to figure out whether they're raising livestock or crops, trying to sort out how do I actually market through this environment. And with that crazy amount of volatility and outlook that farmers have had over the past 14 months, the last set of bars is their state of mental health. Okay, so as we have seen current farm financial performance decline, as we have seen the markets bounce all over the place, state of mental health has really remained constant, which I think is a uber positive aspect of this chart. And when we're done the show here today, what we'll try to do is have a bit of a Q&A, and we can talk more about this if you want to. Learning and development. So we asked farmers, I think it was back in June, and we asked farmers about learning and development. We asked them, have you participated in any learnings and development activities in the last 12 months? So workshops, webinars, seminars, conferences. 68% said yes. Okay? I think that's good. I don't know what I expected the number to be, but that sounds fine to me. Today's event would be included in that. Here's what's interesting. On the right-hand side, we asked them to tell us what kind of topics of learning and development did you attend or did you participate in? What stands out to me, like I talked about in the opening of the show, if it's about production and agronomy, I'm all in. Right? If it's about how to take care of my animals, I'm all in. If it's about strategy planning, accounting, no thank you. Here's the one that is really, I think, a concern. Now, some of the farmers, when we put out the results of this, I got a lot of pushback. Okay, on this opinion. Way too small amount of people looking at human resources. And what people said to me was, yeah, but there's no opportunities. There's no human resource opportunities out there. I call BS. Now, you can go to a conference, and there may not be how to properly hire somebody, more importantly, sometimes when you should fire somebody. But there are resources galore out there in the world if you actually want to look for it. Okay? I think we're spending, and here's the other part. Oh, I only work with my family. Well, you know what? That's the hardest kind of human resources. Right? That's the hardest. These people are difficult to deal with. They're always wrong. I'm always right. Right? What was the question this morning that felt very piercingly honest, which was the, not dealing with conflict and basically torturing the organization. It was like, yep, family business. Okay, here's what else we found out. Confusing slide, here's it simply. Rate the degree to which you feel you and your farm would benefit from additional skill development in the following areas. So if you said that you had attended strategy planning, you were highly likely to say that that's where you would benefit from more of. Okay? People focusing on building on their strengths. What we also saw is the larger the farm from an income standpoint, the more likely you are to participate in learning and development. Okay? You can see it goes from under $100,000 in revenue all the way to $5 million, and it basically creeps, the trend line's pretty clear there. Also, on the right-hand side, this is the kind of learning and development activities you participated in by farm income. The largest farmers, they're attending production and agronomy and marketing seminars. They're also highly much more likely, you can see in the black bar, to attend strategy planning and accounting. Okay? The larger the farm, the better the chance they're working on their farm business. So we got some work to do for some of the smaller farmers. So then we started playing around with some of the data, and what we found out here is that this is looking at who participated in what kind of learning and development activity and compared that to their sentiment. Okay? So we thought we were going to see a little bit more trends, like people that participate in strategic planning would have like maybe a better outlook, and that wasn't the case. What we figured out is that had you participated in any kind of learning and development activity, you were more likely to have a more positive current farm financial outlook and also future farm financial outlook. People that are curious, people that are trying to learn, no matter what kind of activity it was, were more positive in their outlook in the industry. Okay, what else can I show off here before I have to take a break? Rate the degree to which you feel this is fun. So this is like the older generation saying, okay, if this younger generation, which has a whole bunch of flaws, if they want to actually run a good farm business in the future, here's what they need to be working on. What did the older generation say? You need to work on production, agronomy, and marketing. Okay? So the older generation isn't even really passing on. And listen, production, agronomy, and marketing are important. I have a lot of criticisms about our lack of competency when it comes to marketing. Okay, I think we have a lot of room for improvement there. So that's good learning, don't get me wrong. But this is a very big umbrella of skills that we have to have as a farm manager, and we're not really tackling it all. And of course, human resources tied for last place in the definitely would, and succession planning, well, we all know where that ended up. Okay, so we asked farmers, does your farm have a budget dedicated to learning and development activities? Now, this was kind of a flyer on our part with the idea that if you actually budgeted for it, probably should have asked, do you have a budget period first? But we jumped to assume they did. Does your farm have a budget dedicated to learning and development? Because if you budget for it, you're probably more likely to track it and follow through on it, was kind of Justin and I's idea. And we saw that only 19% do. Again, not sure what to take from this, but only 19% of people having a budget for learning and development. We've also asked farmers in our RealAgristudies Insights panel, what stage is your farm at? Okay? We put them into these 5: starting, expanding, maintaining, scaling back, and exiting. Expanding, more likely to have a budget when it comes to learning and development activities. That kind of makes sense to me, right? If I'm exiting, why is it 13%? Maybe it's how to sell the farm. Well, we were just picking on succession planning. Does your farm have a written transition succession plan? 37% saying yes. I can't remember where that is to the census number. That was 13. Okay. So our group is a little bit more chipper than what StatsCan came up with. This is probably still too low. Although, when I talk to farmers about this, again, there's a lot of yeah buts, right or wrong. Maybe this is putting the question just way too simply. Elaine's up here later today. Maybe she can address that. Elaine Fraze. But that's what it came out. And are you working with external advisors? 64% said yes. The number one advisor, I don't believe I have the slide. No. The number one advisor is accountants. Okay. Number 2, I believe it was succession plan experts, like Elaine. Okay. So that was the number 2 advisor. Barriers to succession planning, what farmers have told us, is tax implications, cost, and 2, bad communication. So, what came to me is that if accountants are going to be the number one advisor when it comes, we get laughs from the audience, accountants, communication, what is going on here? We need to pay attention also not to the numbers, but also the softer things as well. And on any of these, I've got I think this whole succession planning, I got 200 slides to go with it. So if you're ever interested in, just reach out to me. Which of the following best describes where your farm is in the process of transition? 38%, we're in the middle of it. 25% saying we're just getting started. Okay? And then on the right-handed side, and I think there's a lot of farms that are always in this. I grew up on a farm where I think it took 25 years for the older generation to actually get their crap together. Right? They were always working on it. That's the problem. It never ends. What farmers said in terms of how long it's going to take for this transition plan to actually happen from an ownership perspective. 27% saying 4 to 6 years, 22% saying 10 to 15. So once again, long process. Good. Everybody plug their ears that's helping people on farm succession. Good for people that are sending bills. Your work is never going to be done. You know what? We got to move on to the rest of the show. I slipped this in here. It's kind of not even related to the rest of this stuff. A lot of talk in farm management and farm operations and where we're headed with land prices. I'm of the opinion until it actually slows down, I'll believe it slows down. It seems like people have been telling me land prices can't go any higher for the last 25 years. But have you bought or do you plan to buy land in 23, 24? Okay. Here's the data, and I can't remember what exactly the overall number was. I think it was about like 30% or 25 or something like that. But this is basically, what this graph tells us, the bigger getting bigger. The larger the farm, the higher the probability they are looking to purchase more land, okay? Which I think also makes a lot of sense to a lot of people that are in the room. So if you have any questions about this for everybody in the audience, we could talk about it more at the back end of the show, provided we have some time. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to take a break, and then we're going to bring up Heather Watson from Farm Management Canada. We're going to break down a lot of farm management topics. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you by Farm Management Canada.
As you look ahead to the next growing season, there's a lot to consider when it comes to your crop. You need every possible advantage available to you. The Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com has everything you need to make the best choice for you and your farm. On-demand videos with leading industry experts available anywhere, anytime. Go into the season confident and ready with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com.
As a grower, you spend a lot of time focused on the details. And sometimes it's only after harvest that you can step back and see the bigger picture. At AGI, we spend a lot of time focused on details too, making sure you can store your grain how you need to and move it when you need to. Learn more at aggrowth.com.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. Here we are broadcasting from the AgX conference in Guelph, Ontario with Farm Management Canada. Big thanks to them for being the sponsor of today's program. It is great to see everybody out here in the audience. As I just said, this is a very, very important topic, and appreciate everybody taking the time to be here for this 2.5-day conference that happens every year about this time. Okay, so now we'll be joined by Heather Watson, Executive Director with Farm Management Canada. Heather, it's great to see you.
It's nice to see you too, Shaun. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah. So great program here today. This is really good. Give us an update. What are some of the things that Farm Management Canada is up to? Because we've established the importance of the topic. So what are some of the things you're doing right now to move the needle?
Yeah, so we're doing a combination of, I would say, research and education and connection in the industry. So on the research side, we're going to be talking about that a little later today. We've just launched the results of our Farm Women study, which is super exciting, some really interesting insights that we'll discuss. And on the education and training, of course, you mentioned this conference. We have workshops in financial literacy. We have workshops in bridging that bridging the gap with farm transition, as well as some interesting kind of risk management activities. I was looking to my right because usually Matt's sitting over there, but yeah, in terms of how do we look at what's happening in the changing business environment? How do we take a proactive approach, and what are all the connections we can make to the various aspects of business management so it's not completely overwhelming and daunting, but a bit of a step-by-step, elephant one bite at a time approach. But yeah.
I think when it comes to farm management learning, a lot of times what happens is we have a lot of regionality, right? This is the same thing that happens with government policy. We try to solve it with like a silver bullet, like a fix. And the problem is that there's a lot of regionality, there's a lot of farms of different shapes, sizes, backgrounds, practices. And I think a lot of time what happens to people in the area of farm management is, I'll give you an example that I hear all the time. Well, I don't have any employees. I don't see how this applies to me. And I find that's just not true. It really does.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad that you talked about human resources earlier because, hey, you're a human resource, like newsflash. And so even if you don't have, even if you have nobody working with you, which is probably not the case, you're still a human resource. So what's your capacity to succeed? What's your capacity in terms of skills? What's your capacity in terms of your mental health and your emotional state and your physical state to keep doing what you're doing as you're doing it? And is that going to be successful for you? And then, of course, as you mentioned, I think it's like 98% of the farms in Canada are family owned and operated. And so you do have human resources working with you, whether they're on, an official payroll or not, or whatever that looks like. I mean, where would you be without those resources? We talk about land resources and animals and financial, but really, and the Canadian Ag HR Council is with us today and tomorrow too, but where would you be without the people?
Yeah, I was at Agritechnica last week in Germany, and because of the shortage of those people and because of some of the work that CARC is doing, the numbers are staggering. The potential losses to the industry are staggering. We went booth to booth and looked at all the technology. I'll tell you, one of the main, okay, how does this help farmers? And one of the main things, it didn't matter what the technology was, it was like labor. Like how this allows you to do this job with less labor. But are we going to eliminate labor? No. But that's one of the challenges here is we have this gap in trying to find people to come to the industry is trying to do it through things like autonomy. So when we look at farm management skills and those kinds of things, is there an area that you think we're really good at? Like we really excel. Like this is kind of where we jump to. We're strong at it.
So in terms of our management skills, definitely production agronomy. But in terms of business management skills, I'm not sure that I would say we're doing a good job anywhere, but where I will say we're doing a good job compared to other countries, for example, would be the fact that we're measuring the data. So I just completed some work for a partner of ours and looking at, what kind of data do they have around the world through the International Farm Management Association in terms of, adoption of business practices, skills development and learning and things like that. And it was really, really hard to come by data in any other country. And in Canada, I was like, well, don't you know, the adoption of practices? Don't you know the farmer sentiment? Don't you know? And so I think as a nation, the fact that we have those facts, we have that data, I think gives us a competitive edge in terms of, okay, what do we do with it? Now that we know that, we're struggling in terms of labor, but we're also not dedicating time and resources to human resource skills development and training, what can we do about that? So having that kind of, that foundation of facts or that data gives us something to launch from, and I think that's really important. And I think you mentioned as well, and Dave this morning talking about culture, the difference between people, their learning styles and their learning capacities, and so it's important to realize there is no silver bullet for sure, and that's why it's important to have, conferences like these. They might not be life-changing for everyone. Maybe you need to go down the road of, a really personalized program or even coaching, but it's like every little bit helps on that spectrum of awareness to adoption, to implementation, to, being able to make it part of your everyday thinking and management and behavior.
Yeah. He talked about, Dave talked about the once a month, having that casual conversation. At Real Agriculture, we do it quarterly. Probably should do it monthly. It was, probably should. And I found exactly what he said, is that you find out things that don't come up in an annual review, right? Because an annual review is a long time, right? And there are things, hey, did you know that this was going on? Or did you know that so-and-so's laptop is crap and they don't want to tell you because they're worried? You mentioned that cost control is important, so they don't want to bring it up because they don't want to think that that they're not listening. Like just little things like, let's fix the laptop. This is crazy. They can't work without a laptop. These little things come up. And the other thing is that we've done like disc profiles with our team. I know for me as the leader, that was huge aha moments when we went through that disc workshop, because I learned a lot about things that I was doing as the leader that were creating issues for other personalities, right? And so it's sort of like an aha. Well, I'm like the one that's actually creating this problem. It's not them problem. It's actually me. I'm reacting to them like I want to be reacted to, and I'm actually making the situation worse. So those are things I took out of this morning at Dave's presentation that I think are really important for people to do with teams of any size. So,
yeah.
Well, Heather, thanks for having us here today. Really appreciate it. Keep up the great work at Farm Management Canada, and thanks for having RealAg Radio here again. This is fun. It's 2 years in a row. We hope to make it 3, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shaun. It's been a pleasure, and we welcome you back anytime.
Okay, when we come back on RealAg Radio, we're going to bring up the star students that I was bragging about earlier. We're going to put some tough questions to them, and we'll do that when we come back. You're listening to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
Boron is an essential micronutrient for plant growth, and without boron, your crops can't absorb the macronutrients they need for higher yields. Although borates occur naturally, boron deficiency is a common soil problem. Whether in direct soil application, through fertigation, or as a foliar spray, US Borax has the right refined product for your crops. US Borax products are specifically formulated to combine with other fertilizers, lowering your application costs. Learn more at borax.com/ag.
You know, there's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup, weed control, field trial results, yield strategies, and so much more. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF, Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast from your favorite streaming service. Download the latest podcast today.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. Of course, we're at the AgX conference in Guelph, Ontario. It's great to have be invited back again here by Farm Management Canada. This has been a lot of fun. If you do have any feedback, questions, comments about the show, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Or, of course, the RealAg feedback line is 855-776-6147. You dial that number, press the number 3, and you leave me a voicemail. We don't even put you live on the air. You just leave me a voicemail. That's easy enough to do. Okay, we've now got a great panel. We've got some star students from the University of Guelph. Of course, the University of Guelph doing great work and a strong brand and reputation in Canada and beyond when it comes to the education around agriculture. So we have 3 students here. First of all, we've got John Arts. John, how's it going?
Good, Sean. How are you?
I'm doing good. John, tell us about your background in agriculture.
So I'm born and raised on a farm just outside of London, Ontario, in a kind of a smaller town, Mount Bridges, Ontario. I came from a cash crop and livestock farm. Recently, we've kind of expanded our cash crop side, so we're currently doing fair to finish pigs, and we're also running corn, wheat, soybeans, as well as processing vegetables.
Wow, that's lots going on there.
It's good to stay busy.
Yeah, well, we were showing the market earlier. That's the hog market, like this, going like a big roller coaster. Yeah,
it's been a wild roller coaster over the last couple of years, but just got to stick with it and just see how it goes.
Yeah, that's what every hog farmer tells me right there. It's like they pull the string. They're good at saying that. Okay, awesome. Well, it's great to have you here, John. We're also joined by Katelyn MacGillivray. Did I say that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so Katelyn, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Katelyn MacGillivray. I was raised in Wellesley, Ontario, which is not terribly far from where we are here in Guelph today. I have a cash crop background. I spent a few years growing sweet corn with my own small business in high school, and I'm in my third year of food and agriculture business here at the University of Guelph.
Cool. So you were growing your own sweet corn in some sort of, like, would you say a small plot or like?
Yeah, so my final year I had about 6 acres of sweet corn with 3 roadside stands, and I had a Shopify store with pickup and delivery, so it was a good project to help me and figure out what I wanted to do as I came into university.
What was, selling corn direct at a roadside stand, what was some of your biggest learnings from that?
I think it was a really cool way for me to connect with consumers. It was the gap from producer to consumer was really small. I was raised on a cash crop operation, so obviously the gap there is pretty big. You don't really get to connect with consumers, but I was doing that over the COVID years as well, so I had a lot of people from my community come to my farm and ask me about how is this corn, how is this grown, how is it picked, and it was a really cool way for me to really share what growing food looks like with consumers.
Nice. I like the entrepreneurial spirit. Absolutely. Taylor, introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me, Shaun. I'm Taylor Legge, and I grew up on a beef feedlot and cash crop farm about 2 hours north of here in Chesley, Ontario. If you know where that is, give yourself a pat on the back. I'm in my third year of crop science here at Guelph, and after school I hope to start my own independent agronomy business, and I've got a couple projects on the go always in that realm.
Awesome stuff. Like I said, these are the stars. This is great. So, John, did you always know, I think this is a common question, did you always know that you wanted to work in agriculture, and why?
Yeah, I think being born and raised on a farm, I've always kind of had a passion for the agricultural industry. When I was a lot younger, I never really had a great idea what exactly I wanted to do. I always kind of threw ideas around whether I wanted to go work away from the farm, if I wanted to work on the farm. Eventually, once I got into high school, got the big sit down with Dad, and he was like, "So, what do you want to do?" And at that point in time,
that is so. I can identify that. What do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah, exactly. I saw the conversation coming from a mile away. So at that time, I decided, I'm really passionate about what we're doing on the farm. I really want to continue what we're doing on the farm. So at that point, we decided, okay, so now we're going to work on what does the next 10, 15 years will look like. What is transition going to look like for the operation? I know we've been working extensively on succession planning on the operation. So with that, I decided to go to the University of Guelph, further my education in the agricultural industry, kind of get more of an economics background of everything. And after school, I plan to work full time on the farm.
Pretty cool stuff. I remember my dad sat me down for that conversation. Sounds like yours went a lot better. Because mine was more, I've told this story on the radio show before, but I think mine was more like, I think it was like in grade 11, and my parents sat me down and they said, so what do you want to do the rest of your life? And at that time, I've talked about this before, I'm the most unmechanically inclined farm kid ever. And if you want to challenge me on that, I will tell you that I will win. I'm terrible with stuff like that. So I just knew I wasn't really sure I wanted to be a farmer, but I loved the agricultural industry. But at the time I said, well, it's funny you asked that because I've been thinking about it. I want to be a sports broadcaster. And my mom took interest and she said, yeah, well, that sounds great. Where would you go to school? And where do you think you would work? This sounds really interesting. My mom was engaged, right? My dad, after sitting there for 5 minutes and listening to the BS, then said, so what you're really saying is you want us to support you the rest of your life. Sounds like my dad was very close to the opening speaker's father. They went to the same sort of love and care school. But yeah, that's how it goes. Katelyn, how about you? In terms of, did you always know you wanted to work you're going to work for Syngenta when you're done this summer, right?
Yes, so I've spent 2 summers there, and I'm going back for a summer, and then I have another year before I graduate. But I don't think I always knew I wanted to work in agriculture. I tried lots of different things in high school. I had lots of different interests, but as I was deciding what to do next, I really loved the community and just growing up in agriculture, and decided to come to the University of Guelph and continue studying agriculture and see where it would go. And opportunities kept arising, and here we are today. I've had the chance to do a lot of cool things through the University of Guelph, and I think about halfway through my degree, I decided, this is what I want to do, and I do want to go home and expand our farm in the future. So,
cool.
Yeah, sitting down and succession planning with that as well.
Now, Taylor, you've got, as you mentioned, you want to have your own agronomy business eventually. They probably won't be able to do that right away. There's a path I'm sure you're talking about and planning for that. Why did you choose the University of Guelph?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that because I actually did not start my studies at Guelph in agriculture. I wanted to be a meteorologist when I became a student in first year, but I realized that after 4 years, kind of the big question mark about my career was looming over me, but I really appreciate the agricultural program at Guelph has a lot of involvement with industry and a very direct path to whatever career you want after school.
Smart move. You become a meteorologist, all you have is farmers complaining about you. Now you're going to work on the industry, you're being an agronomist, and you can complain about the meteorologist that provided the wrong prediction of the weather. Smart move. Very, very... So, why'd you want to be a meteorologist?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always, growing up on a farm, been super interested in the weather patterns and how much they affect my life, the tenseness at the dinner table, everything in between. But I feel like my parents did a really good job of not pushing agriculture onto me at all. The farm was always open for exploration, but there was never an expectancy that would be my career. So I was able to explore what I liked within agriculture without feeling like I had to farm beef cattle my entire life.
That happens a lot in family business. My daughter was actually with us last week at Agritechnica, and I kind of did it myself. I'm like, you could quit school and just come work for me. You're a great videographer. So I was doing it to my own daughter. But I bet you all have friends where basically they were told, you need to come back to this farm. Do you? Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah, definitely.
And here's the hint. A lot of times that doesn't work out. I mean, we heard about passion earlier. If you're doing this industry because you like the lifestyle, or you see a higher probability of a path to wealth, if those are the reasons you're doing it, and the passion part's not there, that's like a problem. So that should be avoided kind of here at all costs. We're going to take a break. We've got more questions here for our panel of students from the University of Guelph. When we come back, you're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you by Farm Management Canada.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
I get to spend every day talking to farmers in the ag industry through RealAgriculture.com and RealAg Radio. But nothing is more fun than speaking to an audience live and in person. If you're planning an ag event, book a Real Agriculture speaker to make it a successful and memorable experience. Email shaney@realagriculture.com and you can book myself or any other Real Ag personality to speak at your event. Bring your audience all the fun, insight, and energy of Real Agriculture. And welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. We are at the AgX Conference at Guelph, Ontario. We got a great University of Guelph student panel. We got John Arts, Katelyn MacGillivray, and Taylor Legge joining us here on the stage. A big thank you to them for volunteering some of their time to be here and speak to the audience that is in attendance, as well as everybody out there in North America that is listening to the show. Okay, so John, let's start with you. Now, you're going to go back to the farm. Okay, so you've decided that. Now, question for you though: after graduation, you're going to go back to the farm.
Yep.
You're not going to work somewhere else first. You're going to go straight back to the farm.
Yeah. So I guess when I first started university, there was kind of thoughts and kind of throwing ideas around, like what am I going to do after school? Whether am I going to go straight back to the farm, or am I going to go work somewhere else for a year, or maybe travel, go to like a different country, run a harvest crew, something, see the area. As I kind of got closer to the end of my degree, and especially last summer, I stayed full-time on our farm, just helping things get done. I kind of realized that, my presence is more needed on the farm, and I then made the decision that after university, I'd come straight back to the farm, just start working full-time, and just kind of dive right into the industry and just, get my feet dirty with it. So that was kind of my thought process there. If I was to go away from the farm, I'm not really sure what I would do. That could just be like a short-term thing, because I just love being at the farm too much. I don't think I could be far away from it too long.
I see it, John, a season in Australia.
That would be cool. It would be cool. But I'm not really a fan of spiders, so stay away from that.
Scratch Australia.
Maybe New Zealand.
We'll have to fight. There you go. That'd be even better. Taylor, from your perspective, you said you want to eventually work your way to having your own agronomy business. You're probably going to work in the meantime at a retail outlet or for another independent agronomist. When you're trying to figure out where you want to work, what's important to you? What are those things where it's like, okay, that's where I want to work? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I have lots of thoughts on that because like you mentioned, business ownership is not in my immediate horizon, and I know that. So working at a retail after school is probably what's going to end up happening, and I'm excited about that. But a common criticism that I hear among my peers and myself is you work at a retail, you learn so much in your first 2 years, and then where are your opportunities for growth? Are you going to get ownership? You're going to have your CCA, that's an opportunity. But after you do all those primary, gathering of experience and certificate, where do you go from there? So I feel like fostering learning and growth is something I really look for when I'm looking for an employer.
Yeah, okay, cool. Katelyn, how about you?
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to work under some incredible leaders and mentors who have really valued my development, and I think that's the reason I've stayed where I am for several years. So fostering that, like exactly what Taylor is saying, is you want people who believe in you and are going to give you opportunities, and I'm very grateful that I've had that opportunity. And I think another one of the key things for me is, as someone who wants to stay connected to the family farm, is having a job that gives me the opportunity to work in an industry I'm passionate about, but also have the time to work on the farm and be empowered to have those two opportunities together. And I think that's what makes me really valuable in the industry is, you have experience on the farm and you have that firsthand knowledge to help farmers. And so, having leaders and mentors that are going to give you those opportunities.
Yeah, were you going to say something?
Yeah, if I could add on to
go ahead.
Katelyn's. Well, one of the things that my dad always said, as I was growing up, is you got to get off the farm. You have to go work somewhere else, get experience. So, for example, I went and worked on a custom harvest crew. I worked for a local dealership. I do agree with Katelyn saying that if you're able to get off the farm, you're able to build connections, get experience, work with other people as like an employee or as a manager or whatever your role is, you're able to kind of see how people work and you can learn on how to, work with people and take that experience you work from off farm and bring it onto your operation, which I think is incredibly important.
Yeah, those experiences add up, and you're that learning as many different experiences as you can get. That's all part of the growth journey, right? And if you've only worked inside of one management style, never being exposed to really anything else, it's really difficult to deal with problems from other points of view, right? So there's that. So, Taylor, do you see yourself wanting to always have like those new experiences, or this is kind of the debate I think a lot of businesses have with younger generations is like, is it about trying to be a specialist in one area and like trying to become an expert at one thing? Like say in agronomy, being an expert in corn agronomy versus being like a real general agronomist across a whole bunch of different crops. I know a few people that like went to Western Canada and spent a few years there learning about canola and pulses, and then still coming back to Eastern Canada eventually. What is more important to you, the specialization or the whole bunch of different experiences?
I feel like being well-rounded by far is the most important. It helps you so much more in your day-to-day life. If you're stuck, there will always be experts you can ask, but being able to have well-rounded knowledge is the most important. If we're speaking on the topic of farm management as we are today, you want to expand your farm into new areas. Buying more land is not always a feasible option anymore, so you need to diversify your business and being able to add value to your farm in other ways.
Yeah. So, John, you mentioned that you and your dad had the conversation about what you want to do the rest of your life, and it sounded like that conversation was pretty open. When you have those conversations, they're not easy in a family business, especially when there's conflict.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And if there's no conflict on your farm, you're lying to me. There always is. There is in any business. So how do you, from your perspective as the young generation coming into the operation, you've got ambition. Like I know when I came back to the farm, I had a lot of ideas, and there's lots of times where my dad could have said, "That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard," and he let me make mistakes, right? So how do you guys make sure you have, from your perspective, good communication and you feel like you're being heard?
Yeah, so I guess I'm pretty blessed in the sense that my dad is a pretty open-minded person. He kind of really has given me the opportunity to go out and explore, and like I said, get off the farm, see what other operations are doing and what other businesses are doing. I guess it is a really difficult kind of conversation when you run off to school and you sit in a classroom and you hear all these great ideas, and then you run back home and you tell Dad, "This is what I want to do," and he goes, "That is terrible," right? So it's kind of like a balancing act on kind of seeing like what ideas you've learned, and especially like even outside the classroom. I've met so many incredible people, including the people I'm on the panel here with today. You get to hear so many different aspects and so many different types of operations, how they do things, and you really get to learn from not only from the University of Guelph, but you also get to learn from the students at the University of Guelph and kind of what they're doing. So like I said, it's quite a balancing act when you come home, being able to see what your dad's perspective, or like your parents' perspective, or kind of the and what they want to do and what you want to do, and you kind of really got to find a middle ground. And finding that middle ground is probably, it's like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes. But being able to see what they want to do, what you want to do, seeing how maybe you can transition and implement these ideas. Maybe they're even just small, whether it's a change in a tillage practice, or maybe if it's even large, like growing a new crop. Yeah. It is a very difficult thing, but eventually you can kind of, find a middle ground, work towards that, and kind of help each other to see how you can make it work. So.
Katelyn, I'm going to jump to conclusions maybe, but I would think that your parents were pretty impressed by you running like a side hustle of a sweet corn operation.
Yeah, they were definitely very encouraging in that, and they've definitely instilled an entrepreneurial spirit in me that's not going to go away. So yes, they were impressed, but I also think it's something they raised me to do.
Awesome stuff. Well, we're running out of time here. I told you it would go quick. I promised you
yes.
it does. I really appreciate it. John Arts, Katelyn MacGillivray, and Taylor Legge. I really appreciate you being here for the panel discussion here at the AgX conference with Farm Management Canada. Really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Shaun.
Okay, and you know what? Listen, I've ranted before about how we're running out of farm kids. Kids that grew up on the farm, that have knowledge of the industry, they are a premium. Especially with the shortage of labor that we have in this industry, from the farm gate all the way through the C-suite, indeed. I want to thank Farm Management Canada for having us here today. Really do appreciate it. If you have any feedback, shaney@realagriculture.com is my email. You can always call that RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Big thanks again to Farm Management Canada. Thank you so much, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio. Thank you. How awesome are these students? Oh.